Now, could you describe the 5 stages of grief?
Yes, we can.
And the 5 stages, starting with
The first one's denial,
right.
leads into anger, bargaining, depression, and then we finalize in acceptance, which is also adjustment, is something we've been kind of discovering in our research and different things we've been looking into. Denial is kind of the process of not wanting to accept that this has happened, be it anything. A lot of the time, grief is associated with death, but it doesn't always have to be death. Sometimes if you lose a limb or something that was really important to you,
Sure.
any kind of loss, you're in that denial that that didn't happen. Some people don't actually make it past that stage, and also the stages aren't linear. It can come and go in any different order. Sometimes someone may never move past a certain stage, but eventually the goal is to get them where they need to be as far as to live a healthy life.
And have some closure, and that's usually like that final stage. And as you said, it's not a linear process, and you might not even experience all of the stages. You might even stay in one stage for a long time, and then many years later you could easily revert back to one of the stages of grief. But we need to be observers and not putting time constraints or any expectations on people who are going through these stages. We sit back and we just are objective observers, and it really is different for everyone. It's a real individualized process. Some people will often say, how long should somebody be in denial, and
There is no set
quantity.
time frame or...
And also, speaking of observing, I think it's important to be able to apply these stages to certain life events and actually be able to see them happening, because it's not always that easy. One example, or few, would be college students or someone who has important documentations, or maybe in 15 or 18-page paper that they've saved. Well, sometimes the computer crashes, or that file's corrupted, or something happens, you didn't save what you wanted to, and that is now gone. And the first stage, which would be denial, would be rechecking all of your files. Oh my God, no, it's got to be there. It's somewhere. I know I saved that file. I know it's there. And there's the denial you're witnessing. That next leads into anger. No, I just can't do this anymore. I'm going to fail my class. This is just not happening. And maybe they'll slam the computer. They'll blame the teacher, or they didn't give me enough time. And it just kind of goes to the anger stage. The bargaining then is just, oh, I'm going to turn my computer on. If it's there, I just need it to be there. If it's there, I'll go do something good today. Or if it's there, I'll never procrastinate again. And there's that bargaining you're seeing into place. And then it might be the depression, when your computer finally loads up and you're like, it's not there. I'm going to fail my class. I can't do this. What am I going to do? And then the acceptance is when you finally load up a new document and just start writing again. So that's a good way you can see it in your daily life.
That's a wonderful analogy too. And it's important when you start out in the denial stage that it's really like the person they're touching that pain, and then it's okay for them to pull back. Anger is probably the strongest emotion, and the one that might make people feel the most uncomfortable, but it's a perfectly normal emotion in this particular, experience for the person. As long as there's no self-harm or anybody is at risk of being in harm, it's okay to get really, really angry.
And I think it's hard to accept that anger in our society when someone sees someone die, and then you see them going in their house and burning everything, or taking a bat and hitting something. That's just, they're trying to get that out. It's not so much violence as it is trying to process what happened. And that's part of that stage, getting through. Because once they can process that anger, they'll move into bargaining, and then maybe depression, but they're moving down so that they can live their life and try to get through that. So.
And the bargaining, of course, are the what-ifs,
Sure, and I was just going to say the anger part, certainly it's like you're saying, there is no exact time frame for each one of these stages, and some people never make it through all the stages, or they skip a stage. But that the anger stage itself is one of those, I would imagine, that is really a broad category, because some people can be angry, but yet they're really at this end of the pendulum where somebody else can get extremely agitated
Absolutely.
by the situation. And
Well-
as you were saying, the person has to do what is right for them
Right.
in that
Absolutely.
circumstance.
And it's similar to depression because we know that people can be chronically depressed, and that's a mental health disorder that needs to be treated. But in the grief process, depression is kind of an overused word, and it's really sadness. When does it become a deterrent or an illness for a person? And I think if you always go back and think, you know, well, once it starts affecting their activities of daily living and their job and their relationships, you know, then you probably do need to seek some help. But being blue and being sad is very, very normal reaction. And there are quite a few differences between depression in a grief stage and chronic depression in the clinical sense.